Previously on Ill-Equipped History. And this was the biggest manhunt the country had ever seen up until this point. Witnesses saw a man shoot an officer, and then that civilian ran up to the police car and used the police car's own scanner to call in that an officer had been down.
Oh, wow.
So then he flew to Europe and defected to the Soviet Union in October of 1959.
Okay. My entire life, as soon as I became cognizant of the JFK assassination,
Yes.
we were all told that Lee Harvey Oswald did this definitively. But he never even went to trial.
So, with this being such a high-level case and all the fuckery that went along with it, of course, there would be a huge investigation. Of course. So, we have the Warren Commission.
Because also looking at this bottom image, it would make more sense for it to just be two separate bullets completely. Because, again, this is not physically possible.
Yeah. Welcome to Ill-Equipped History, where two best friends tell you about something that happened in history, and we are not equipped to do so, and we're doing it anyway. I am joined by Morgan.
Hi.
And I'm Emileigh. I always forget to introduce myself, so if you're new here...
I think that's the first time you have introduced yourself.
In a very long time. I'm Emileigh, by the way. I just forget about myself. I always introduce Morgan.
Hello, I am the corporeal voice speaking in the ether, joined by Morgan.
Y'all just are going to have to read the show notes to figure out what my name is, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. So welcome to part 3 of the JFK investigation that we're doing here. It feels like an investigation.
We are on the case.
We are on the case. Now, I am still very sorry that I've made you wait this long, but I feel like it was worth it.
Yeah, it would have been a lot for just 2 episodes.
Yeah, so we're doing our first 3-parter.
Woo.
Which is funny. It's in the month of our anniversary, our 1-year anniversary.
Yay! Happy anniversary to us.
We're going to be celebrating all month long.
Yes.
Before we get too deep into this, I do want to say just a few things. We are going to be talking about JFK's autopsy, specifics about assassination. I will not go into gory detail. If there is a point where I feel like I need to say something that's a little bit more than just entry wound, exit wound, and maybe a general size or location, I will say it beforehand. I took one for the fucking team, y'all, and I watched the Zapruter film I don't know how many times to make sure that y'all don't have to.
Oh my God.
There is a video, and I will link it in the show notes. Proceed with caution with this video. It is a VR reenactment video of the assassination. So they took the cameras, and you can move the screen around in this video, and they have the camera set up from Abraham Zapruter's point of view. Mm-hmm. So you can zoom in, and it does put him, it's like a modern day picture, but they put the caravan, his car and stuff on the road, mm-hmm. and you do see the shots. So I just wanted to say that out loud before anybody clicks on that. You do see the shots. Also, don't Google his autopsy. Just don't.
Yeah, their autopsies are gnarly.
They're so gnarly, and there is no reason for those pictures to be so readily available. You just come across them.
That's how I felt about next week's episode. If you Google the topic of next week's episode, or just like the event that happened, you will get very, very gruesome pictures, like first result.
Yeah. And it does bother me, but doesn't at the same time. Like, I understand, but for our sake, Morgan, I just put diagrams that were drawn so we don't have to see anything horrible today.
Okay.
And that's if I put anything like that up, it will be just of that, just diagrams. I guess without further ado, let's do this thing.
Let's just jump on in.
So please, let me get prepared for this next section.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Wait.
I don't want them overhearing.
Damn it. Work. Hang on. I'm in my bathrobe, but I don't care.
Oh my God. I put in a lot of work on this thing.
You should be very proud.
Oh, I was giggling to myself in the kitchen with like foil on my head.
That's so funny.
Okay. So, in all seriousness, we are going to get into the discrepancies that we found. I needed that. Oh my God. So we're going to get into the discrepancies that we found. If y'all we didn't actually say what happened. I put on an actual tinfoil hat.
Yes. I took a picture of it.
I'm sure we'll put it somewhere. I look ridiculous, I'm sure. But anywho. So, in the 1992 act that was put through, it is a couple years past 2017. So we should, in theory, have all of the documents out. And I did watch, it's called Through the Looking Glass. Something like that. I'll have to look up exactly what it's called, but a documentary. And I did go into this documentary with a critical eye, open mind. I'm not going to get sucked in. I promise you, I'm not getting sucked into, oh, it was this and it was that and it was a conspiracy. And I wanted the evidence. Mm-hmm. And they did an incredible job of going through and finding the discrepancies of what the Warren Commission found and said, as opposed to what the actual documents say and what eyewitnesses say and what the people that were there who are still alive or the people that were close to those people said, because you'll see it gets a little muddled, but I didn't put anything in here that I felt wasn't credible to some extent. So, of Oswald, let's get into the building itself and Oswald's part in this. So, apparently, the guy that drove Oswald to work got arrested that morning. He was interviewed as well. They interrogated him, and they actually wanted him to, confess that he was part of it. I didn't hear anything that happened to him, so I guess he didn't. So Ruth Payne, at the time, Marina and Lee, like I said, had been separated. The police arrive to Ruth's house looking for Marina. And they ask Ruth and Marina, hey, does Lee have a gun? And Ruth's like, no. And Marina's like, yeah. He do be having a gun. And took the police to the place where Lee Harvey Oswald typically kept his gun, but it was not there. So it was missing. Mm-hmm. And it was said also that when she went to the police station, she took the newborn baby. Her name was Rachel. And she just looked like she was about to face something that she was not wanting to do. Like she knew something, and they were separated at the time. He didn't want her to learn English, and she was having a hard time as, only speaking Russian
in Texas.
Living in Texas. So, it was on the, it was on the fritz there. So I feel like she might have known something, but what is she going to do about it? Like the bullets. 3 shells were found in the depository, like I had stated earlier. According to the Warren Commission, 1 bullet missed the car. The second was the magic bullet that did its weird things. And the third was the fatal headshot wound. The FBI reported that all 3 of those bullets hit the car, even though a bystander near the underpass was actually hit with a fragment of a bullet that had hit the concrete. And the bullet came up and hit him in the face.
So were there 4 bullets?
Or were there 3 bullets and one of them missed the car? Well, but then the FBI said that they all hit the car. But then the Warren Commission said 1 missed. And also, if all 3 shells were found in the depository, that means that if any shells were found, or if any other evidence shows, there could only be 3 bullets, according to the Warren Commission. If anything else happens, that just debunks the whole thing.
Right.
So, it was said that Arlen Specter, he was in the assistant counsel of the Warren Commission, was the one that had the idea of the 1 bullet theory. Okay, so let's talk about what the chain of custody is on a bullet or on any piece of evidence. Mm-hmm. It is documentation as to who has the evidence to keep the validity of that evidence intact. So evidence doesn't get switched up, and this includes the lab. So whatever's happening in the lab, if you have a piece of evidence, you are signing for it. If the chain breaks, the evidence cannot be used because it cannot be proven that it is the evidence from the thing.
Right.
So let's talk about the chain of custody for bullet CE399, and that is what they labeled the magic bullet. I have no idea how they determined that specific one was the one that did all the weird things. I don't know where the other 2 are. I have no idea, but that's the one they call the magic bullet.
Okay.
And apparently it was found on a stretcher, on the president's stretcher, by Daryl Tomlinson, who was Parkland Maintenance. Daryl gave it to O.P. Wright, who was Parkland personnel. O.P. gave it to Richard Johnson, who was the first Secret Service agent to actually have it in his custody, in his care. He carried it back to Washington, D.C. That's when Richard Johnson gave it to the chief of the Secret Service, James Rowley, and then James Rowley gave it to Emileigh Todd, an FBI agent, and then Emileigh Todd took it to Robert Frazier in the FBI lab, according to the documents. So
I have my head in my hands for the audience.
Yes.
The first problem is that it was not an officer or a forensic technician or anyone that found the bullet in the first place. It was a maintenance worker. That is the first problem. You don't know if he pulled it out of his ass. He could have done, that bullet could have come from anywhere and no one would ever know because he said he found it on a stretcher. What is a maintenance worker doing near the president's stretcher?
I don't know.
What the hell? Like, what?
Yeah. Oh, we're at the tip of the fucking iceberg with this shit.
God.
So then, John Hunt went to the archives. John Hunt is just a citizen, and there have been plenty of these people who have dug through these archives now and really wanted to know, like, what exactly happened. And he tracked down the story of this bullet. And his main question was CE 399 the same bullet that was on the stretcher?
That's what I just said.
Yeah. So Frazier signed the bullet at 7:30 that night. And he was the lab guy, Frazier. But Todd documents say that he retrieved the bullet at 8:50 that night. Todd was the guy that had it before Frazier.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's lying. Todd also said that he initialed that bullet and everyone after initialed too, including Frazier. But Todd's initials don't appear on the magic bullet paperwork that was presented by the Warren Commission. So it had to have been Frazier on something happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, also, this is a weird thing that I found not in the documentary, but it might be credible. It might be not. It might not be. But I'm going to say it. Do you remember Landis? Mr. Debut himself. He was one of Miss Kennedy's Secret Service agents.
Yes. He was the
young one.
And he wasn't the one that was in the car. He was in the other car, right?
Correct. Landis claimed that after the First Lady left the limousine at the hospital, he found the bullet resting on the top of the back of the seat of the car. On top of the back seat of the car. I don't know why it's worded like that. And he wanted it to not fall into the wrong hands, like a scavenger. So he put it in his pocket. He brought it into the hospital and, without telling anyone, put it on the president's stretcher. Irrationally thinking that it would be the best place for investigators to find it. Some think this is credible. Some think this is not. But, like, why are you part of the Secret Service and you're not reporting a bullet found after the president was assassinated?
To my knowledge, I don't think, and I could be wrong, I'm not an expert on Secret Service, but they are not trained in, like, forensic techniques and, like,
probably not
police work. Their job is protection. They're bodyguards. They're very scary, important bodyguards, but they're bodyguards. So, like, I
feel like this is common knowledge.
Yeah, like, you don't touch evidence. You leave it for the people who know what they're doing.
You tell someone about it. At a minimum.
Yeah, and you don't touch it. That's, like, you tell someone, like, a police officer or a coroner or, like, anyone. And, like, yes. I get, like, there are people who are very well-meaning that accidentally, like, contaminate or invalidate crime scenes because we're all people, we're all human. And I can absolutely see, like, a young Secret Service agent, like, I don't want this bullet to get lost. I'm going to make sure it's found.
Right.
But it just...
Yeah. But, so let's just say this is credible. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's just say it's credible. That would suggest that the bullet that had struck Kennedy had to have come from the front, slowed down enough to come out the back and land on the seat behind him.
Why?
Because it was found on the top back of the seat.
Well, if it's the one that...
Not the head one.
They know that they know definitively it's not that one.
No, they're saying this is the magic bullet. The one that went through the throat.
But they're also saying it went through Connolly, so how could it have gone through Connolly and then back?
Right. Well, this is not what the Warren Commission says. This is what people are speculating that had turn it around, it goes through the throat first, out the back, and lands on the seat. Now, I don't really see if it's going through there and it makes an exit wound back there. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going through the seat. Like, it's going to have enough momentum to do that. I don't see that being viable.
Right. And if that were the case, there would have had to have been another gunshot to shoot Connolly. Because based on the trajectory of that bullet, it wouldn't have gone, like, if we're reversing it, wouldn't have gone, like, through his hand, up his body, out his shoulder, and then through.
No. Yeah.
So, like,
yeah.
I don't know.
This is a theory that it was not a magic bullet and that it came from the front and out the back.
So there's, like, another shooter, essentially.
Yeah, basically. And pretty much you're going to see all roads lead to a second shooter on the grassy knoll. But,
okay.
Anywho, internal records show that the bullet that was found doesn't look like the magic bullet that was in evidence, like it had been swapped. So people who saw the bullet were like, that ain't the same bullet.
Because I'm looking at this bullet. This looks like a new bullet. It doesn't look like a spent bullet, because bullets, they squash, they like break apart, they...
Ooh, we're gonna get into that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should just let you talk.
No, you're good. You're like, I love this. We're in the mind meld.
My
I love this. Okay.
My true crime knowledge is all consolidating.
So, the commission stated that a man named Bardwell D. Odom showed Tomlinson, and remember, Tomlinson was the guy that found the bullet on the stretcher, showed him the bullet, and Tomlinson said that was the bullet that was found. Odom was asked about this later on, and he said, I never had that bullet. If I had that bullet, I would have done the proper documentation on it. No documentation was ever found that it was ever in Odom's possession. Odom was someone of importance, but honestly, I didn't write it down. I'm so sorry.
And Tomlinson was the maintenance worker, right?
Was the maintenance worker. So according to this paperwork, Odom showed Tomlinson this bullet, and Odom said, I never had that bullet. Someone forged these documents. Odom's like, I never had the bullet. I never showed it to the guy. Had I done that, I would have filled out the correct documentation. So now we have something that the Warren Commission presented in their final things that said, it was, and it wasn't. So now, still on the bullets, let's move on to the lack of damage. So the magic bullet made 7 wounds and smashed through 2 bones within those 7 wounds. So Joseph Dulce, MD, he was a surgeon and U.S. ballistics expert, reenacted shooting cadaver bones in the wrist with the exact gun, the one found in the depository with 100 bullets. And with every single shot, the tips of the bullets were smashed in all 100.
Well, and
then...
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
And
go ahead.
In
yes.
the Warren Commission, it said that one of Connolly's ribs was shattered. So not even just wrist bones, but like a whole fucking rib.
Yeah.
That's going to decimate a bullet.
They smashed on just a wrist.
Yeah. Bones are hard, y'all.
Yeah, bones are hard. and somehow incredibly fragile. So and he quoted saying, "Under no circumstances do I feel like this bullet could hit a wrist and still not be deformed."
No. There's no way.
Dulce thinks 2 bullets hit Connolly. His testimonies and his reports were not included in the Warren Commission report. Conveniently left out.
I'm having a lot of opinions about this whole thing.
Yeah. Connolly himself refused to accept the single bullet theory, and he stated it publicly. He was like, "Nah, that couldn't happen.
He was the one shot.
I was the one shot."
God.
Get out of my head. Okay, but seriously. And even a lot of the people on the commission didn't believe the 1 bullet theory.
I have a thought. Maybe I'll wait till we get to the end, because I don't want to keep interrupting you. But I have a very, very strong opinion, my very own ill-equipped opinion.
Okay,
that I'll get into.
Do you want to wait, or do you want to?
I'll wait, because I'm sure you're going to tell me even more bullshit. So.
Oh yeah. Let's just say we might have to record the bonus episode tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, just prepare for that in case. So, remember, there was a man named James Tague who was injured at the time.
He was a bystander.
Tague testified that they were, quote, coming from my left by the whatever you call the monument, which was the area of the North Pergola Monument, aka the fucking grassy knoll. That the shooter, the guy that got injured, was coming from the grassy knoll area. And multiple witnesses said they saw somebody from over there. I'm getting worked up.
She is. Okay. She's like waving her arms everywhere. She's got like crazy eyes on.
I had to get this off my chest. I'm so sorry. So, Senator Russell, he was one on the Warren Commission, said in a note after the initial December 5th, I wrote 5 and then RD.
Bird.
I think I'd accidentally wrote 3rd and then changed the 5 but didn't fix it.
December 3rd.
Okay, December 3rd. So on the December 5th meeting, quote, and this was in the archives as well. If you want to, you can go dig all this shit up. So, quote, something strange is happening. Warren and Katzenbach know all about the FBI and are apparently planning on showing Oswald as the only one considered. This, to me, is an untenable position.
That's my opinion.
And he shared, he shared concerns with President Johnson that September of the following year. And in this conversation, Johnson said that he doesn't believe the single bullet theory either. And he also thought that Oswald didn't act alone. And Russell became the first to publicly deny the Warren Commission's findings.
Okay.
So, this next section, we are moving on from the bullets. And we're going on to the gun itself. So, the rifle that Oswald had was one that he had ordered out of Klein Sporting Goods catalog. It was an interesting time back then. And he ordered it under the name of Alex Heidel. So he ordered, and there is paper documentation with the name and all that going, the gun he ordered was a 36-inch model Manicleer Carcano. If I said that wrong, I don't know shit about guns. Okay, sorry. And it was a 6.5 millimeter for $19.95.
Wow.
Man, Nick would be so happy if guns cost that. So Robert Fraser was one of the examiners and a firearms expert. Now, I do believe that is the same Fraser that had possession of the bullet earlier.
All right. Great.
All right. But Robert Fraser was one of the examiners and a firearm expert. He measured the gun that was in custody, and it measured 40.2 inches instead of the 36-inch model that Oswald had ordered. Now, let's say there is a chance Klein sent a different model, but there are other issues with this. The straps were in the wrong place. So there was a photo of Oswald holding his rifle in his backyard, and it was taken by his wife. In the photo, the straps were mounted on the bottom, but you can clearly see that the gun that they pulled out of the depository, the straps were mounted on the sides. And the pictures themselves were actually very weird. There were 3 pictures taken in the backyard, and his wedding band kept flipping hands. Now, yeah, he could have taken it off and moved it, but why would he do that? It's his wedding band.
Could it be a mirrored image?
Well, Oswald was shown these pictures, and he said, quote, "That's my face, but I don't remember ever having those pictures taken of me." And again, he could be lying, but it's suspicious. He claimed they had to have been doctored. And I don't know if anybody has ever, done any,
Forensic science, magic.
Or anything. Yeah, I don't know how that works. So, but the documentary put a big question, put out a really important question. And that is, why would anyone use a rifle for the assassination of a president that had a fucking paper trail that led right back to them?
And I feel like I guess rifles are pretty accurate, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think in my head I was picturing a shotgun, honestly. So I'm like, wait, no, I was wrong.
Yeah, shotguns. I do know this. Shotguns, when they shoot, they splatter.
Yeah.
So you'll get a bunch of smaller, where a rifle is a more direct.
Right.
Hunting.
Yeah.
Hunting.
No, you're
you don't
right.
have to aim with a shotgun.
No.
Just
for some reason, my dumb brain was I knew rifle. I was hearing you say rifle, and my brain was shotgun with a giant.
Yeah.
Barrel. I'm like, wow, that's not very accurate. I'm dumb. So you can continue.
It's okay. We don't do guns.
No.
So, also, the foremost fingerprint expert, Sebastian Latona, attempted to lift prints off of the rifle after the rifle was taken to Washington, D.C. And he found nothing and testified that to the Warren Commission.
No prints?
No prints.
On a gun?
That just killed the president, yes. That was after it was taken to Washington, D.C. But Lieutenant Day in Dallas said he found partial palm prints on the stock and trigger guard before it was ever taken to Washington.
Were those partial prints ever identified?
I don't know. They didn't say. But Latona says, I don't know if maybe they ever found them. I don't know. But Latona says that it looked like it had never been looked for prints. They had never even tried. It was a clean gun.
Well,
so that means
when they dust for prints, there's actual dust.
Yes. So that means that the gun was either cleaned or swapped before DC. And I'm thinking swapped because it's not the same gun as the pictures or the one that he ordered. The one that was in his name. All right. So let's move on to Oswald's time in the depository. Officer Baker, who was the officer that ran into Oswald on the second story, says that from the time he ran into the building after hearing the shots was less than 2 minutes. So we have 2 minutes for Oswald to get from the 6th story of this depository building, hide the gun, and then run down the stairs and come across an officer that does in a way that doesn't look suspicious. Because yes, you could run down 4 flights of stairs after hiding a gun
in 2 minutes.
And in 2 minutes, you're gonna be winded.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, the Warren Commission reenacted this and said it was totally possible, because of course they did. So, Barry Ernest, who was the author of a book called The Girl on the Stairs, was interviewed in this documentary. And he interviewed co-workers of Lee Harvey Oswald. One of those co-workers was Victoria Adams, and she worked on the 4th floor, and she also knew Oswald. They took her testimony, but it was missing, and then apparently it was then destroyed, because the Warren Commission destroyed a whole bunch of shit. But we're in luck. Barry Ernest hunted her down, respectfully, of course.
Yeah.
And wanted to know her side of the story. So she was 22 at the time and worked with it. She knew who Lee Harvey Oswald was. After the assassination, she immediately ran to the back stairs where Oswald would have needed to come down to try to see what was happening, to try to get to the 1st floor and figure out what was happening. She should have seen Oswald on those stairs, because she went immediately and he would have had to come pretty much immediately. She saw no one on those stairs other than her friend and coworker, Sandra Stiles. Apparently nobody was believing her. So she told David Bellin, who on the Warren Commission, to speak with Sandra Stiles, because again, no one was believing her. So Sandra ran down the stairs with Vicky, or Victoria. The Warren Commission wouldn't even speak to Sandra. Wouldn't even ask what happened. So apparently she left the 4th floor within 15 to 30 seconds after the assassination and arrived at the 1st floor in less than a minute. The Warren Commission claimed that it had taken her several minutes to get downstairs.
4 flights of stairs?
Yes, several minutes.
Does she have a cane? I mean, no.
She was a healthy 22-year-old girl.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
This is just supporting my opinion even more.
I know. So in 1999, Barry found a letter written by the U.S. Attorney Martha Jo Stroud that was forwarding Vicky's signed testimony to Lee Rankin, the head honcho, one of the head honchos of the Warren Commission. So, in the last paragraph of this testimony, a woman named Dorothy Garner was mentioned, and it was Vicky's supervisor who had stood at the window with Vicky that day. So Garner claims she saw Vicky go down the stairs before the police came up, so it had to have been within 2 minutes. And this confirmed everything that Vicky was saying was true, and that's 3 people who should have seen Oswald come down, never did. And this indicated, or this hints at, Oswald couldn't have been on the 6th floor at the time. Now, I don't know why he would have done all the things afterwards.
That's literally what I was just wondering. Like, if he didn't do all that, why would he, like, rush home, grab a pistol, and then go out and shoot an officer and then try to shoot another one? I was literally just thinking that.
Yeah, I don't know. But all of this is very suspicious. And at a minimum, it just kind of proves that what they say happened didn't, and we might not know.
So I guess I'll go ahead and just say my opinion. And this happens a lot in murder investigations where a horrific crime happens. Like, in this example, the assassination of a president in a horrifically graphic way. The authorities want to wrap this up as soon as possible because they do not want to drag this out. They want to satiate the public.
Yes.
So they lock on a target. And I'm not saying this is definitively what happened because I don't know. I just know that this has happened many times and this is what it sounds like. They lock on a target that is suspicious, may fit their profile for the killer. It sounds like they very quickly locked on Lee Harvey Oswald. Did it have something to do with the fact that he had just murdered a cop? We'll never know. He was a Soviet sympathizer. Also, this is just a really random thought that just came up in my brain. How did he defect to the Soviet Union and then move back to the U.S.? How does that even happen? We'll get to it.
We'll get into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the police are like, we gotta find the killer because we have to, for reasons, of course.
Right.
And they find their patsy. Whether he did it or not. We'll never know because he was never tried. And he was never convicted of the crime.
Yeah.
So we cannot say if he did or not. And then mysteriously murdered just 2 days later, and then that killer was acquitted, or at least the charges were overturned, whatever. And there is a botching of the investigation where every single turn they are not letting the evidence speak for itself. They have an assigned narrative, and they are picking and choosing and cherry picking evidence to support that narrative that they have already come up with.
And it's getting worse. I know.
There would even be there's no such thing as a fucking magic bullet.
We haven't even gotten into the autopsy yet.
Oh, God.
Let's get into the ER doctors and the autopsy.
Okay.
And the fuckery that happened there. So, Dr. Perry, upon day of the assassination, upon retrieving JFK, performed a tracheotomy and claimed at the time that the bullet looked like it went into the throat from the front.
Okay.
And he publicly stated that. Now, all of the tapes that had been released, by the news sources and stuff on this, or any of the recordings, were destroyed of him saying that it was coming from the front. So, according to those who worked with him during the time, Dr. Perry was called multiple times that night and asked to change his statement to say that it was an exit wound. And he was later quoted saying that it was an exit wound. And then they forced him to back down and shut up about it. Dr. Donald Miller was, he was a professor at the University of Washington, and he worked with Perry in later years very closely. And he was interviewed in this documentary. And he was very interested in this case, and we're talking about the 90s or whatever. So it's been a long time. And Dr. Perry would never answer the questions, just immediately shut them down. And apparently one night after a very long surgery they had done together, they were sitting in the lounge alone, and Dr. Perry finally admitted that it was an entrance wound. One of the reasons that he changed his testimony was because Elmer Moore of the Secret Service was putting pressure on him to say that it was an exit wound and that he was the head of the Secret Service in Seattle. So, yeah, Elmer Moore was the head of the Secret Service in Seattle and was putting pressure on him to say that it was an exit wound through the throat, not an entry wound. So, it was later stated that Moore regretted putting pressure on Perry, but he had been ordered to do that. And Moore was also in charge of getting the doctors at Parkland to agree that there was no hole in the back of Kennedy's head. Because we're going to get into his head wounds in a minute. Obviously not very graphic.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Clark was the second doctor that worked on him in Parkland Hospital, and he was the head of neurosurgery. And he claimed that JFK had a gaping wound in the right rear of the head.
Mm-hmm.
So, here.
Right.
I don't know if I have any... No. Okay.
And you can see it, like, because you see his right side. Like, his right side is facing in the Zapruter film. So you see, like, the wound on the right side.
Yes. And this might sound really graphic, so I'm so sorry. The blood spray does seem like it comes out more of the back, and his head does snap back.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. So the description he gave appears that it could be an exit wound, because typically when you are shooting something, the entry wound is very small. And as a bullet goes through soft tissue and things like that, it just expands and makes the exit wound larger.
Yes.
So another doctor at the hospital, because there was just a shit ton of people going about.
Yeah.
Dr. Crenshaw at Parkland felt that the wounds in the head originated from the front, starting at the forehead and going back. And he wrote an entire book about it, apparently. There was a supervising nurse in the OR. Her name was Audrey Bell. She said that the wound was also in the right rear. And when the doctor shifted his head a little bit to the left, there was a hole that could be seen, I guess, around his hairline. I don't want to get too graphic with things. Mm-hmm. I also I could have gone my entire life without seeing JFK's dead body. Because I could have.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to describe them to you.
Yeah.
You don't want to know.
Dead bodies are not fun to look at.
Nope. And especially as bad as that one.
Yeah.
So, that is 4 doctors that are claiming now that they have seen an exit wound down on the right, an entry wound from the front, and an entry wound in the throat and out towards the back.
And I'm thinking too, like, it's just another, like, theory. I don't know if he'll go into it, but if his entry wound was by his hairline, like, and I don't know, like, where everything is in relation to everything else, but it sounds like the shooter, if the bullet was coming from the front, would have had to have been elevated in the front, not behind him.
Yes, what they're thinking, if you look at the grassy knoll, it is a pretty steep kind of incline. It's not like a gradual little hump. It is, probably about this.
Like a hill.
And like a hill, there is a hill. And there is also a fence kind of behind and to the left of the monument. There was a wooden fence. And they're thinking that because the knoll's up here, the road goes down. Mm-hmm. So it like this. So if someone was positioned at the fence line and shooting at the president from this way, you would have a shot coming from more of the top and angling down.
But wouldn't it, if it's coming from the right, the exit wound, unless it just, like, this is really graphic, I'm sorry, but, like, bounced around up there, the exit wound would be from the left. If it was angled more to the right.
It was more, I believe, in front, not at a not like at a harsh right angle,
Yeah.
more of a front down.
Because I'm just looking at the map that you have here, and the grassy knoll is to the right of the car.
Right.
So, but if the wound came out of the right side, like, it doesn't even have to be, like, super far, but if it came out more of the right side, the entry wound would have had to have been, like, even just slightly more left, or the angle more left. You know what I mean? I don't know. And, like, again, like, bullet physics inside the body are very weird.
And I mean, we also don't know exactly which way his head was
true.
turned, and we don't know, like, they said... They kept using a word. I don't know how to say it. I forgot to write it down, but it was I did look it up, and it was like it almost skimmed his head.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think it went, clean through exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. More like grazed.
Yeah.
His...
Well, and it's also very hard to tell because even the autopsy reports are a little wonky.
Gotcha.
So let's get into that. So...
Okay.
Legally, I would like to point out that the documentary said there were over 40 eyewitnesses saying that there was an exit wound or a large gaping wound in the back right.
Mm-hmm.
And then that changed with the Warren Commission and what everybody told the public. Mm-hmm. So, legally, in Texas, autopsies have to be done in Texas. They have to be done where it happened. And the chief medical examiner there was there and in Dallas, but was not allowed to do the autopsy and was even threatened for trying. So they illegally took the body out of Dallas to do the autopsy somewhere else. So
where was it done at?
It was done at
Bethesda.
Bethesda, thank you. I said it right for days now, and then I fucked it up. So, in 1981, copies of the autopsy report were distributed among JFK researchers. Apparently, the images of the head wound contradicted what witness doctors had claimed. So the doctors were writing one thing, and then the pictures of the autopsy report were finally kind of released, and they were like, these don't add up.
Yeah.
So, at the Bethesda... Holy shit, I need a drink. Okay. Bethesda Medical Center is where they ended up doing the autopsy. All the top forensic pathologists were an hour drive or flight away from Washington, D.C. Not a single one of them were called. None of them were brought in. You know who they did bring in? 2 Navy pathologists, Commander James Humes and J. Thornton Boswell, who had never done a single gunshot wound autopsy in their entire careers. This should have taken 2 to 3 of the top pathologists in the United States. And they got these 2 guys.
You would think if they weren't trying to form their own narrative and influence inexperienced people, you would have the top men performing this autopsy.
These pathologists realize they are in over their fucking heads. And they call in Dr. Pierre Fink, who, he was from the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology. Fink hadn't done an autopsy in over 2 years. Now, I'm sure he knew a lot about him, and at least they had that guy. But they asked to have a medical examiner present, so they would just have somebody that knew what the fuck they were doing. Permission was denied.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know who it was denied by? The 33 people that were chilling in the morgue during the autopsy. 33!
I don't have words.
And the pathologists were told ahead of time that the shot came from behind.
No!
And he fell forward and to figure out how it fits.
Oh my God. No, you don't.
The surgeons, they were not in control.
No, you don't tell, like, the medical examiner should be able to figure out exactly what happened through the autopsy. You don't have to tell them what happened.
They figure it out. They're little investigators of their own.
When they're experts and they have experience with gunshot autopsies, which these two guys did not. Oh my gosh.
Also, they couldn't find the bullet that had gone through his back. I don't know why they insisted they needed the presence of these bullets to prove anything. Like, bullets can just be anywhere and get lost. Like, it just happened.
It's probably in the dirt somewhere. Who knows? Or it's in, like...
But they came up...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. No, but they came up with the dumbest theory. Is they said that when Kennedy laid on the stretcher and was given chest compressions, the bullet fell out of the hole that it had gotten lodged in. And that's how it ended up on the stretcher.
But there's testimony that says it was placed there.
They didn't even know that there was a bullet hole in his neck because of the tracheotomy. They thought that was just a trach hole, not a bullet hole, because the doctor used the bullet hole as a tracheotomy hole. I mean, I guess if it's already there.
So, maybe, I don't know if you mentioned this in the last episode, was he, like, technically still alive when he got to the hospital, or had he died by the time he got there?
I think technically he was to the point where he wouldn't have... No. I mean, his body was shutting down actively.
I mean, he would have died regardless because with those wounds, but I was just wondering, because I know, like Lincoln, he didn't die at the theater. He died later, like, at home. Right. And he was shot in the head. So, at point blank range. So, I was just wondering, like...
Yeah.
If they were going to all these efforts to save him, was he, like, breathing still, or...
I don't know if he was breathing. I think they just needed to try to say that they
did.
Tried.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, they didn't even know that there was a bullet hole in the neck. And I don't think they ended up going with this theory, but the fact that they even thought of it was bizarre to me. Because how the fuck does the bullet that gets lodged in the chest get pushed out onto the stretcher, but then somehow shoot Connolly?
Exactly! They are literally contradicting themselves.
Also, pictures of the autopsy report show that the bullet hole was not in the, quote, back of the neck, like the Warren report said. It was further down and to the right. So if you look at the little doodle of the naked man on the autopsy, look where that bullet hole goes through. For it to come out of a neck, it would need to go up.
Okay, let me see.
Now, how is a bullet going to go up when you're being shot at from the 6-story window?
The only way I could think of is, like, ricocheting across, like, a rib or a bone or something, but...
Still, the chances of that are so slim.
Well, and an autopsy would be able to tell that. Like, you could look at the ribs and see, like, was there, like, a bullet ricochet, you know?
And the bullet would have been smashed to fucking smithereens.
Right! Yeah. You know what? Like, before this episode, I was just like, you know what? Like, the explanation is a lot more simple. Because that's just, like, it's Occam's razor. Like, explanations for things are a lot more simple than people say. Like, I'm not really into conspiracy theories. But, oh my god, like, this whole thing is a sham.
Welcome to the rabbit hole I have found myself deep into.
And it is such a disgrace.
Honestly. So, people who were in the autopsy room or in associate say it looked like when they looked at the pictures of the autopsy that had been taken later, said it looked like JFK's head had been put back together and then photographed.
Like they put...
Like the entry... Like they sewed his head back together. And then took pictures. So...
Why would you... So, my other thought with that...
Okay.
When I was listening to another podcast, and one of the girls on there, my favorite podcast, she's an autopsy technician, so she's done a lot of autopsies herself. And a lot of the times in autopsies, they will... It's going to be really graphic, I'm sorry. To look at, like, the bones and stuff, they will take the skin off.
Mm-hmm.
To look at, you know, get a better idea of, like, bone injuries and stuff like that. And then sometimes put it back on. But it doesn't, like, line up the next time around. So I don't... Is that what they're talking about? Like, when they sewed him up? Like, is that, like... Or they just, like...
They sewed the back of the head back together.
Okay.
Like, I cannot describe the pictures. I am getting chill bumps just thinking about these pictures that I saw, that his head was not together.
Mm-hmm.
It was in... I'm probably going to cut this. Things dripping out of places that should not be dripping.
Yeah.
And so I can't even put into words, like, if they were to put his head back together, it would have taken a lot of effort for almost no reason, because he ended up still having a closed casket.
Right.
So, like, and it was the back of the head.
Yeah.
So people think that they put those back together to make the bullet hole look like
an
the
entry
back
wound.
was the entry wound instead of an exit wound.
I see. Okay.
But also, I think it's very interesting that I caught this, that his face is completely intact.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. Had a bullet at that angle come in, regardless, it would have...
His face would be gone.
It would have gotten his face.
Yeah.
At least part of it. But no, it was... See, and that's just another discrepancy that, like, I even caught. It just doesn't make sense.
It's physics. Like, it's literally how bullets are designed to work. That's how they are so deadly. They don't...
Yeah.
They don't stay nice, neat little holes or, like, round little shapes. They're designed to do maximum damage. Especially rifles. Exactly. Rifles are meant to kill.
Yes. So... The photos themselves were a little weird. They are archived. Mm-hmm. You cannot go just look at them. Mm-hmm. And they were... A lot of pictures were taken of the brain as well. And John Stringer was an autopsy photographer, and he photographed JFK's brain. Stringer was later shown the film of the brain, and he said... Those aren't my pictures. That's the wrong kind of film. I don't use that film.
Oh my God.
And he also claimed he didn't take any pictures of the underside of the brain. And there were some in the archive. So obviously there was a second photographer. Now, Robert Knudden has also been credited for photographing the autopsy. And everything he told them contradicted the Warren files. And to me, it looks like a mashup of the two different sets of pictures. And Sandra Spencer was the one who typically developed pictures for the president and the family over the years. So I don't know. I guess there was, back then when you had film, you had to get it sent off. So I guess those would be very private. Mm-hmm. So they had like a place where the pictures would get sent. She developed the pictures for the family, and then they would get sent back. So these autopsy pictures get sent to this poor woman.
Oh my God. No.
After she's developed this relationship with this family.
Oh my God.
So she receives the autopsy photos and said, he didn't look like that. She said, he didn't look this bad in the photos I developed on Sunday. So, were there 2 sets of autopsy photos and one had been altered, like he had been put back together, and like the other one wasn't, and she was like, why do these look different? Like, if anybody knows what the president looks like, it's gonna be her, because she's seen so many damn pictures of him.
Well, that leads me to wonder again, like, if it's like a post, like, right, like a, and again, I don't know. It could be
right.
fabricated.
I don't either. The picture thing confused me a little bit.
And I also wonder, like, if one set of pictures was done before the autopsy and the other set of pictures was done after the autopsy. Yeah. Because
now
he will.
Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say he will look different because of the nature of an autopsy. They're not exactly. They're not delicate procedures. They are
no.
So it's very. That could be why. Yeah. I don't know.
Also, the pictures of the brain was really weird because it was pretty much an entire brain. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry if this is going to get just a hair graphic. I don't know how graphic I'm going to be with the descriptions, but FBI agent Frank O'Neill said that over half the brain was missing at the time. You can see in the Zapruter film, Jackie climbed onto the trunk of the car, and that was to grab chunks of his brain off the car. So obviously, we wouldn't have a full intact brain that we're trying to play off as Kennedy's. And the autopsy states that his brain weighed 1,500 grams. The average brain weighs 1,300. And professionals say that brain looks like a really nice one that's been sitting in formaldehyde for a few weeks. And now his brain is missing. It's probably somewhere in archives that no one's... Yeah.
It was dug in a hole in the back. No one will ever find this.
Yeah. So the only physician that was at both Bethesda and Parkland was George Berkeley, who was JFK's personal doctor. Berkeley signed the death certificate and the autopsy report and stated that he had been shot in the back, not the back of the neck. Neither of those documents were in the warrant. Neither of the documents in the Warren report had his signatures.
I'm also still on the brain thing. Like, how dare they try to pass off what looks like a regular brain with someone who was shot in the head, regardless of where the entry or exit wound was.
This poor woman has her husband's literal brain in her lap in pieces, and they have the fucking audacity
to say, like, here's his brain, and it's a regular brain.
And it's, like, got a small little chunk out of it. And it's bigger than a normal brain. So,
anyway.
No, you're good. So, in 1977, Berkeley wrote a letter to his lawyer, Richard Sprague, who is the chief counsel of the Select Committee on Assassinations. And he was saying that he had information indicating that others besides Oswald must have participated, and he was willing to talk about it now. Sprague was forced out of the committee 2 weeks later. Berkeley submitted a written statement to the House Select Committee, and there is no record of him being disposed as a witness. In the 80s, Berkeley told 2 JFK researchers that he knew more, there were more gunmen. And when they asked him later, he wouldn't talk about it. Then Berkeley died. And they asked the executor of the estate, his daughter, to sign off on looking for more information. And she initially said she would. And then they contacted her later, and she had completely changed her mind and wouldn't sign anything and hung up on them. So obviously something is happening to make them say, I want to talk about it. Then all of a sudden, no, I don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was, I mean, relatively recent.
Yeah, you said the 80s, right?
Yeah, we're talking 20 years after this even happened. So, on to the neck hole. So, the autopsy report shows the back wound entered around vertebrae T3, which is below the shoulder blades, and 2 to 3 inches to the right. The Warren Commission stated that the injury wound was higher up in the neck area and went out the neck wound to fit the magic bullet theory. Now, Commissioner Ford ended up changing the wording from back to back of the neck for the Warren Commission statement.
And those are two different things.
Two completely different things. And in 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassinations actually moved it lower on the back because they had pictures of the autopsy. The Warren Commission probably thought no one was ever going to see those autopsy pictures. So that just tears apart their entire theory.
They don't have any concrete evidence to any of their claims. Everything is fabricated. Nope. According to hard evidence and eyewitness testimony.
Yep. So Ford later told the French president that it was not the work of one person and that it had been set up. Quote, "We were sure it was set up, but were not able to discover by whom."
Because a proper investigation was never done. And that's the problem I have with, like, these cases that they're just like, oh, we got our suspect, we're good to go, we did a good job, you guys. Like, you're not seeking justice. Like, justice is not being done because the actual killer is still out there. You just wanted to check a box to get the job done. Nothing annoys me more.
She's getting fired up.
Oh, I am.
So, let's go back to Oswald and how he got in this predicament to begin with. So, Robert Tannenbaum, who is a former deputy chief counsel, House Select Committee of Assassinations, says that Oswald wouldn't have been convicted on the evidence presented before the Warren Commission.
No, there's no way.
No. So he was a member of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, which is pro-communism. But he also had ties with anti-communists. And the people who had ties with CIA and FBI. And he defected to the Soviet Union in 1955, like I said. When he came back, normally there's a very thorough debriefing, but there wasn't for him. Him and his wife just popped on back. Now, Otto Otepka, who is the Deputy Director Personnel Security State of the Security State Department, noticed an increasing number of Americans defecting to the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. And he was like, hey, CIA, bro, can you give me a list of these people? Like, he noted that a lot of them were military, and he thought that some of them might be fake defectors. And he's like, if this is true, if this is a fake defector, I need to know who the fuck they are. Mm-hmm. So I know who's a real defector and who is, like, spying for us.
Right.
So the CIA sent him a letter. Guess whose name was on the list of being an agent that was defecting to the Soviet Union?
You're shitting me.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
You're shitting me. What the hell is going on here?
And then Otepka became very interested in Oswald. And I don't know if he had interest in a lot of people or something about Oswald like caught his attention. But he kept digging into Oswald's like file and stuff like that. And eventually they kept telling him to stop. He kept getting harassed and stuff. And then Otepka was formally removed from office on November the 5th of 1963, just 17 days before the assassination. The CIA claims that they had never had any contact with Oswald, saying that they didn't know anything about this guy. But the Assassination Records Review Bureau records show that the CIA was receiving reports on Oswald up to 1 week before the assassination. They were even going through his mother's mail. And the files at his files at the FBI and the CIA had a flash put on them, which means no one can pull those files. And he's considered a higher threat level. That's a big red flag. And it had been like that for 4 years. Weeks before the assassination, the flashes were removed, meaning that Oswald's threat level was now considered lower at both the CIA and the FBI.
What is happening?
There were also other assassination attempts that went on that year for JFK. Chicago of November 2nd and Tampa November 18th, just days.
Wow.
Before the actual assassination. So an informant named Lee gave a warning to the FBI that 4 Cubans were headed to Chicago to kill the president. The next day, a landlady said she rented a room to 4 people, and they all had rifles and telescopic sights and stuff like that. 2 of them were retained, and the other 2 got away. They got no information from them. And that Chicago trip was canceled.
Okay.
During this, another threat came from, and I'm calling him a patsy because that's what the documentary called him, a patsy named Vallee, saying that Vallee would kill the president. And they only went and got this guy after Kennedy canceled the trip at 10 o'clock that morning. Thomas Vallee and Oswald had a lot of similar things. They both trained Cuban exiles for combat, which was the CIA's responsibility. Oswald moved from New Orleans to Dallas that October. Vallee was moved from Chicago to Chicago just a month before the attempted, job. Both were given jobs in tall buildings on the route of the motorcade. And on November 18th, they went through Tampa, and there were some connections there as well. This guy named Gilbert Policarpo Lopez was a Cuban exile. He also attended Fair Play for Cuba meetings, and there were rumors that he also assisted Oswald in Dallas, but there was not an actual, any shootings or attempt through Tampa.
So let me make sure. So this came from the documentary, right? Is the documentary implying that the CIA placed plans to assassinate the president?
No, they're not. Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. I don't need them finding out. Nobody tell the CIA.
Yeah, Emileigh's got her tinfoil hat on.
I don't want them to know. But yeah, they were implying that. And I know those are big leaps. I'm presenting it like they presented it. And I like to think that I am saying these things in we can tell that Oswald moved from New Orleans to Dallas that October. Those are things that we know. Mm-hmm. Now, other things, I'm just going off of,
these are not representative of our opinions. These are just
of course
the facts.
Yeah, these are that I came across. And I didn't see any hard, most of everything pretty much everything I've talked about up until now has had, like, the document was in front of my face. Now, this gets a little into, kind of conspiracy
squirrely-ish.
But Abraham Bolden was part of the Secret Service. He was actually the first black Secret Service agent assigned to a presidential detail. He was actually handpicked by JFK.
Wow.
He was there in Chicago during the briefing and said the security was very lax, and that he claimed he witnessed the steps that were taken to cover up the Chicago incident. There was no paper trail left, agents ordered to be silent, all of that stuff. Now, he tried to say something about it, and then shortly after got nailed for a fake crime and put in jail for years.
Are you fucking kidding me?
That's why I added all this, because it was like the one guy that was actually saying something about it conveniently got put in a jail and discredited. Like, now that's either a huge coincidence or it could be something worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, why? Why would we finally got through all the discrepancies?
That's what I want to know. I mean, everyone, I'm not going to say everyone has reasons, but...
Right. Now, do you want me to get into what the documentary said first, or do you want me to get into the ones that we've heard our entire lives as like a conspiracy?
Let's do documentary and then like the conspiracy.
Okay. So according to the documentary, Kennedy, and this is true, Kennedy had been planning to pull out of Vietnam, construct an entire new foreign policy, and according to the documentary, this is where I felt like the documentary started to get way into, like, these are a lot of accusations for me not seeing things.
Right.
So this would have messed up plans that had already been set in place by the Pentagon and the CIA, by former presidents or things like that. He was wanting to become peaceful with countries, might not have been what they wanted to do necessarily. So after the failed Bay of Pigs invasion, him and his brother suspected that they had been lied to by the CIA and that it was bound to fail. The documentary went into more details about that, how JFK was said that they wouldn't need military or anything like that, and that it was kind of set to fail to make him look bad or not go the way he wanted it to. And he claimed he wanted to shatter the CIA. I mean, he was being lied to. There was a coup in France. The CIA apparently went behind their back and killed a leader of someone whom he was trying to be friendly with. The CIA went behind him and killed that guy.
The CIA's
he didn't find out about it for months.
The CIA's done a lot of shit. Like,
yes. Kennedy told the French leader at the time, quote, "I'm not in full control, though, of my entire government. I'm not in control of the CIA, and I can't speak for what's happening there." He said that to the French leader. And JFK had forced out 3 top CIA people, and one of those, like I said, had ended up becoming part of the Warren Commission. And the CIA were trying to perform terrorist acts in the United States and blame it on Cuba so they would be justified for an invasion. These were documented.
Yeah, no, I 100%
JFK
believe
would not do any of them. JFK was like, we're not doing that. But those were documented. I did see those.
Yeah. No, I 100% believe it. I mean, we've done it before. That's literally how the Spanish-American War started. Was William Randolph Hearst was like, let's blame this ship randomly exploding on Spain. War.
Yeah.
We want to sell newspapers.
War. So, before his death, Kennedy said that the American people wouldn't go to war in Vietnam and they would pull out. Immediately, when Johnson became president, the first thing he did was change that. Kennedy's body was still in the damn rotunda, and he's sending troops to Vietnam within days.
Oh my God.
And Johnson never agreed to JFK leaving Vietnam. Funny thing is, the Tonkin Gulf Resolution was written before the Tonkin Gulf incident occurred. So, the documentary, as you can tell, is very heavily on it was the CIA.
Yeah.
They do have some pretty hard evidence, and I'll give them that, but that's as deep as I'm really, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, this does not reflect our opinions. No. I don't know.
I mean, it's like, I don't really know what to think. I mean, is it possible? Sure. I guess so. CIA is a big fucking organization, and they can do about anything.
Yeah, I mean, they have dismantled entire countries' governments before. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, especially if someone personally ticked off the CIA. So, again, I'm not saying the CIA did it, because I don't need the target on my head about that.
I also don't have a time machine, and I cannot go back and see what actually happened.
Right.
So,
right, and that's the bitch, isn't it? I mean, we have to go on, at this point, trying to do math in my head, like 60-year-old eyewitness testimonies and destroyed evidence and altered evidence and just kind of hearsay at this point.
Yeah.
Because people are saying, like,
that's why,
like, this is what happened and I have signed this happen and it's destroyed. I mean, I believe those people, but there's also no evidence of that happening. Because you can say anything.
That's exactly why I said that the Warren Commission report was the most important, because it was the closest to the time. Mm-hmm. It had all the correct avenues. Mm-hmm. And had they done an actual investigation, had they at least tried to make it seem like they weren't trying to cover something up, the people would have been like, yeah, all right. They did too much. Like, whoever it did too much.
Yeah.
Like,
it got clownish at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Magic bullets.
Fucking, like, that never made sense to me.
No.
Even as a kid, I was like, I've shot enough guns as a kid. I haven't, like, shot an animal or anything, but I've shot plenty of guns. I have one.
Yeah. I've shot guns too.
We've shot guns. We know how they behave for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, I've shot cans and bottles and stuff. The bullet hole in the front's little, and
and they travel in a straight line. Like, there's there's ricochet, absolutely. But it's not like, it's not like cartoon, like, like ricocheting all over the walls and stuff. Yeah. Like,
it's giving cartoon Western saloon. He shot the ceiling fan and it boom, bing, ding, ding, ding. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Like, and it's impossible for a bullet to curve in its trajectory. It cannot happen.
There was one short video I watched that somebody actually did, like, the whole 3D thing, and they reenacted it with, like, modern technology, and this was recently. Mm-hmm. And they said everything kind of lined up for the most part until we get to the magic bullet, and the only way that could have lined up from that building was if Connolly was sitting in the middle of the car.
And he wasn't.
It just doesn't add up.
Yeah.
So, let's get into some of these other theories real quick, and then I swear we'll let you go. So sorry. So, I'm so glad we made this into a multi-parter because, my God.
Yeah, this would have been a 4-hour episode. That would have been way too much.
Way too much. So, the big oil industries and the rich of America had him killed. That's one theory.
Okay.
They think that multiple people were using, like, Lee Harvey Oswald's identity. And, yeah. So there's that.
Okay.
You'll love this one.
Okay.
Former CIA agent and Watergate burglar E. Howard Hunt was a participant in the assassination of Kennedy, garnered much publicity from 1978 to 2000. So he was a popular name thrown out.
Huh.
Apparently, after Hunt's death in 2007, an audio-taped deathbed confession in which Hunt claimed first-hand knowledge of a conspiracy as a co-conspirator was released by his son, St. John Hunt. Apparently, in this confession, Hunt claimed to have been a bench warmer in Dallas during the events, and he named several high-level CIA operatives as those who likely carried out the logistics of the assassination. Hunt named Vice President Lyndon Johnson as the most likely figure behind the main impetus of the conspiracy. Now, the authenticity of the confession was met with skepticism, of course.
Yeah.
We don't know if any of this is true, but it's interesting.
And I'm going to be honest, like, I don't know everything about Howard Hunt. Just from what I know of, like, investigating Watergate, like, he was not really someone that kept his mouth shut. You know what I mean? Like, and he was sneaky. I mean, he was trying to blackmail people. He was trying to extort people to, I don't know. I have no idea. But it's just, that's kind of a weird
It's
theory.
a weird one.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one's even weirder. So, the Dallas police officer, J.D. Tippit, who had been murdered, has been named as a co-conspirator.
What?
As a renegade CIA operative sent to silence Oswald as the Badge Man assassin on the grassy knoll. And we'll talk about the Badge Man in a second. So, according to some of the Warren Commission critics, Oswald was set up to be killed by Tippit, and Tippit ended up being killed by Oswald in self-defense. So, other critics doubt that Tippit was killed by Oswald and assert that he was shot by other conspirators, and some allege that Tippit was associated with organized crime or right-wing politics, which, I hate putting a title of, like, right wing or left wing or any kind of thing on any of that. But, like, none of that feels right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just weird.
It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And unless Tippit knew where Oswald was gonna go after allegedly shooting the president, how would he have known where the fuck Oswald was in a city like Dallas?
Right. And, like, Oswald went up to his police car and was, like, in the window and was like, hey.
Yeah. So, do you remember when the morning of the assassination, when JFK was shown a newspaper that was, it said, like, welcome Mr. Kennedy to Dallas or whatever.
Yeah,
and it was all bad stuff.
Yeah.
So the publication was full-page, paid advertisement critical of Kennedy that was published November 22nd in the Daily Morning News. It was signed by the American Fact-Finding Committee and noted Bernard Wiseman as the chairman. It was investigated to determine whether any members of the group claimed responsibility for the connection to Oswald. And the commission stated that the American Fact-Finding Committee was a fictitious sponsoring organization and that there was no evidence linking the foreman responsible for the ad with either Oswald or Ruby or anyone in association. Mark Lane testified during the Warren Commission's hearing that an informant whom he refused to name told him that Wiseman had met up with Tippit and Ruby 8 days before the assassination at Ruby's Carousel Club. Now, remember, Ruby is the guy that shot Oswald.
Right.
Tippit is the guy that got shot. So this guy is claiming that Wiseman, the guy that put out this newspaper, met up with Officer Tippit and the guy that killed Oswald. Now, the commission reported that they, quote, found no evidence that such a meeting took place anywhere or any time.
Yeah, that's a weird
Apparently, the source of the allegation, whose identity Lane promised not to reveal, ended up being Carol Jarnigan. And he was a Dallas attorney who had also claimed to have overheard a meeting between Oswald and Ruby.
Where is he where he's just like hearing like random, like, oh, let's have a plot to kill the president and didn't say anything?
I don't know. But several people in Dallas were well aware of Jarnigan's tale and that he later admitted to making it all up.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
No, and I can't believe that, like, people believe that.
No, and
it doesn't.
What the shitty thing is that, and it sounds like what was going on, like, people will do whatever it takes to be included in, they want their 15 minutes of fame, and they're like, oh, I know the big secret. Come pay attention to me.
Yeah.
And
you don't know the big secret.
And it derails investigations and provides doubt, and, I mean, this investigation in particular needs a lot of doubt because I very highly doubt it. But, like, even legitimate investigations, it can mess it up and, like, provide leads that don't lead anywhere and just wasting time and money and resources. It's just, like, if you have nothing to do with it and you don't know anything, don't fucking say anything.
Yep. So, on to the Umbrella Man. Have you heard this one?
No, I don't think so.
The Umbrella Man, he was the closest bystander to the president when he was struck with the bullet. Footage of the assassination showed him holding an open umbrella as Kennedy's motorcade passed, despite the fact it was a beautiful sunny day, not raining at all. Some people said that a dart with a paralyzing agent could have been fired from the umbrella, disabling Kennedy and making him a sitting duck for assassinations, even though he was moving up until the fatal shot, but whatevs. In 1975, CIA weapons developer Charles Cincinnati told Senate that, yeah, they had that technology in 1963. Let's not compound on that. Let's not. No. So, a more prevalent conspiracy holds that the umbrella could have been used to provide visual signals to hidden gunmen. Okay, for one, I don't think they're going to need signals if they're that close.
Right. Like,
they see him right
there. He's in a convertible.
Yeah. So, in 1978, Louis Stephen Witt came forward and identified himself as the Umbrella Man, testifying before the United States House Select Committee on Assassinations. Witt stated that he brought the umbrella to heckle Kennedy and protest the appeasement policies of the president's father, Joseph Kennedy. Now, I'm laughing because of the quote I'm about to read.
Okay.
Quote, I think if the Guinness Book of World Records had a category for people who were at the wrong place at the wrong time, doing the wrong thing, I would be number one in that position without even a close runner-up.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I don't think that his assassination had anything to do with an umbrella. Honestly, I was thinking like maybe he wanted to shield himself from the sun. It's not like sunscreen was widely available. I was thinking
like sun. That is reasonable. And Dallas is hot as fuck.
And using an umbrella to heckle the president is hilarious and harmless.
Yeah. Yeah. So then there was the dark-complected man. I have no idea what else to call him. That's what they call him. So I am sorry if that seems a little offensive. I just don't know what else to...
Like, what do they mean by that?
He's just dark-complected, and I guess that's all they had to go off of.
I know, but like...
He's literally sitting next to the umbrella man. These photos are from 1968. Yeah. They're not good.
Right. Blurry.
So they're blurred, and they're like, well, he looks like he has a darker complexion than the guy sitting next to him. So I guess that's how they, whatever. He could be seen in several photographs sitting on the sidewalk next to Umbrella Man. But then Louis Stephen Witt, who said he was Umbrella Man, was unable to identify him. And this is... I mean... I'm just going to say it. This is racist. Those whose he had dark complexion, and they speculated that because he had dark complexion, there was Cuban government involvement. Which is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. Also, it's Texas.
It's Texas!
Like, whether he's Latino or Cuban or just has a really dark tan or whatever, like, that isn't... Just because he has dark skin doesn't mean that he is involved in the assassination. And I wouldn't be able to point out a stranger that was sitting next to me at a parade.
No!
There's no way.
It was crowded as shit.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. No, that was what was...
Yeah, no.
That pissed me off really bad. So we've got the Badge Man and the Tin Hat Man. So some figures on the grassy knoll who could be seen in the Mary Mormon photo was taken approximately 1/6 of a second after President Kennedy was struck with the fatal head wound. The figures were first discovered by researchers Jack White and Gary Mack and are discussed in the 1988 documentary, The Men Who Killed Kennedy, which I feel like that's very presumptuous that you know who it was. Right. But anywho, allegedly there's a third figure that can also be seen on the grassy knoll. Again, we're at a motorcade. There's people everywhere. Yeah. But the Badge Man appears to be wearing a uniform similar to that of a policeman with the badge prominent. You ever thought maybe it was just a policeman?
Doing crowd control? You know, making sure no one does anything weird as the president's walking past or driving past?
Yeah, they had extra people on patrol that day. Stupid. So we've also got the Black Dog Man, which you can see in the Zapruter film. Some people are like, it's just a bush. Some people are like, it's a person in front of a bush. It's a person behind a bush. And some are like, it's a person. I don't know. It didn't look like shit.
Well, that video is blurry as hell anyway. And it's kind of hard to focus on anything else when, you know.
Yeah. So... You ready for the next one? This one's very woo-wooey.
All right.
The shadow government.
Oh, the shadow government.
A secret or shadow government, including the wealthy industrialists and politicians, ordered the assassination of Kennedy.
That's just the government.
Yeah. Peter Dale Scott indicated that... And Peter Dale Scott's like a poet, by the way, so I don't know why he has opinions, but whatevs. I guess we have opinions, so you know what? You say what you want, Mr. Scott.
Yeah, but I'm not saying what did or didn't happen.
No. He indicated that Kennedy's death allowed for policy reversals desired by the secret government to escalate the United States military involvement in Vietnam. And it did. And I'm not saying... what's the saying? Something doesn't mean causation.
Correlation does not mean causation.
Thank you. Correlation does not mean causation. Anywho, some think the Secret Service was in on it. So the President Kennedy did not receive adequate protection in Dallas. And it was said that the Secret Service possessed information that was not properly analyzed, investigated, or used in connection with the president's trip to Dallas. So, you know, those previous incidents. Mm-hmm. And it was very inadequately prepared to protect the president from a sniper. So...
But does that mean it was an inside job? Because they were not prepared?
No. Now, this, and I'm going to read this word for word. So,
okay.
No actions were taken by the agent in the right front seat of the presidential limousine, Roy Kellerman, to cover the president with his body, although it would have been consistent with Secret Service procedure for him to have done so. The primary function of the agent was to remain at all times in close proximity to the president in the event of such emergencies. Now,
he's in the front seat. What is he supposed to do? Stretch Armstrong to the back seat?
The back. I don't know.
Just teleport?
So, yes. Now, Vince Palomera, who interviewed several Secret Service agents assigned to the Kennedy detail, reported that the driver told him that the requests, such as removing the bubble top from the limousine in Dallas, not having agents positioned beside the limousine's rear bumper, and reducing the number of Dallas police motorcycle outriders near the limousine's rear bumper, were not made by Kennedy. That kind of contradicts everything, because Kennedy was kind of known for just being out in the open. Mm-hmm. And also, none of those things would have stopped a bullet in a sniper. Like, it just wouldn't have.
No. It was...
Now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other theories, I'm just going to list off some, include, because they just get a little more unhinged. Mm-hmm. Cuban exiles, organized crime, Lyndon B. Johnson, George H.W. Bush, the Cuban government, Soviet Union, a decoy hearse, which is specifically that they switched the bodies to alter it at a different location, the Federal Reserve, the Israeli government, the KKK, and the John Birch Society.
What is the John Birch Society?
I have no idea, and please do, I'm too exhausted. This has taken everything out of me.
I'm sure it has. This is a lot. Okay, the John Birch Society, this is from Wikipedia, is an American right-wing political advocacy group. It is anti-communist, supports social conservatism, and is associated with ultra-conservative, radical right, far-right, right-wing populist, and right-wing libertarian ideas. So.
I mean, that tracks. It's on theme, at least.
Yeah, because, I mean, Kennedy was a Democrat, so, and he had very socialist, left-wing policies, so. Well, not very, but, you know, anyway.
Right. Closing thought. All this evidence really proves is, one, the Warren Commission report was a bunch of bullshit. Mm-hmm. And that there was a second shooter, at least a second shooter, somewhere. More than likely on the knoll. what it doesn't prove is who the fuck did it and why and any of that.
When people say second shooter, I mean, I know there were bullet casings found in the depository, but by all accounts, all of the gunshot wounds accounts that were destroyed were all front entry wounds. Like, I don't know, unless I'm just missing one, where there was an alleged entry wound from the experts involved and everything that came from the back. Yeah. So, like,
I think, I mean, if you count maybe if there was, well, actually, I might not have said it. There were some witnesses saying that there were shots being fired from the window.
Okay.
Not necessarily
the killing shots or the
killing shots. Yeah, but there were shots.
Okay.
At least 3, because there were 3 shells found.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure, like, could those have been a distraction or a red herring or, I don't know. Now I'm getting into my own little, like, thing. But just, like what you said earlier, I don't know if anyone will ever be able to find out what happened definitively, because so many people said that their own testimonies and expert opinions were destroyed. And again, we only have their word for it.
Yeah.
And then we can only take what we have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even if there is eyewitness testimony that these documents were fabricated and just kind of made up. What I can say, as in my own opinion, is that, like I said earlier, the authorities involved had a narrative, and they wanted to find evidence related to that specific narrative.
Yes.
Whether the evidence they had was concrete or not, I think it's very fair to say that they were trying to align evidence to their narrative, whatever that looks like. And it's to the detriment of justice and for John F. Kennedy and Lee Harvey Oswald and other victims.
Yeah. I came out of this with more sympathy for Lee Harvey Oswald than I really anticipated. Mm-hmm. Do I think that he's, completely in the clear? Do I think he had nothing to do with it? Of course not. He was not given the rights that we are just inherently have in this country. And I know that this, unfortunately seems to happen a lot.
Way too often for a country that is free, and we have these rights of legal representation and things, and he never received that. Yeah.
And I feel like that was a big injustice to him and our, honestly, just democracy in general.
Yeah. And we may never, like, again, if he was involved, we'll never know, because he was never even allowed to stand trial.
Exactly. And all we have to go on, from what I can tell, unless the interrogation documents are in those archives, is what he said to the public, and that he was just a patsy and he never shot anybody. And how truthful are those? I don't know.
Right. And whether he did it or not, that's very unfair. And it's an injustice, honestly, that his name was attributed to the murder when we don't know.
Yeah. And now I will say, on the book depository building, there is a plaque, and it does say allegedly assassinated Kennedy. So at least there's that. Mm-hmm. And somebody actually circled allegedly, like,
keep that in mind.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Which I understand that.
Yeah. So thank you for going on this journey with me, Morgan.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I hope you grabbed an umbrella to break your fall into the rabbit hole we just fell down.
Yeah. And I'm going to heckle the president with it too when I'm done.
You You ought to.
Oh man, yeah, this was wild. There was a lot more, as per usual. There's a lot more to this entire story that I did not know. I didn't even know Lee Harvey Oswald is that young. I thought he was a lot older for some reason.
No, 24 years old.
That's so young.
2 small kids. I wonder what happened to his family. What happened to Lee Harvey Oswald's children? They're still alive.
Yeah, they were born in the 50s and 60s. They're in their 70s.
Marina went off and married Kenneth Porter. She worked at an Army-Navy surplus store. She retired. Now she's in her early 70s. When was this article written? I don't know. About 10 years ago. So she would be in her 80s now.
Okay.
And let's see.
They may be very private. It may be really hard to find info on the.
Yeah, I think they are just really private. Yeah. Okay.
Which I do not blame them at all.
I don't either. Oh my gosh.
Wow. Well, thank you for putting in the hard work for this episode, because
you're welcome.
I feel like it has completely consumed your life for the past month.
It has. I'm going to go find some brain bleach to scrub those images out of my head.
Yeah, you are such a trooper, because I know you do not like true crime stuff at all. And you were having to look at all, the Zapruter film and all those autopsy photos. Yeah. Oh my God, I don't know if I could have done it.
I think it was a little more okay with me because I knew the story as well as I did. I had seen it before. Yeah. So it wasn't really
it wasn't new.
Shocking or new. It was just still very disturbing. And I think another thing that's really upsetting about it is just how easy these images are to obtain.
Yeah.
And why this is happening. I mean, just because he's an important person in our history doesn't mean that we should be able to watch his death over and over and over again.
No, I know exactly what you mean. It's very, I'm trying to even think of the word. I don't even know if there's I'm thinking of French words.
Yeah.
Blasé. I don't know if that's the right word. But yeah, it's just it's very crude. It's very, feels inappropriate.
Well, inappropriate's a good word. It's like going back to, the true crime. If we had a video of somebody being murdered, being shot, we wouldn't just blast it all over the place. And then that's very disrespectful to not only the dead but the living relatives,
right?
So
yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah. Well, we should get into socials.
Yes. It's getting late.
I am very tired. I think I'm going to skip the gym tour.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Okay. So if you liked me and Morgan falling down the rabbit hole, if you like what we're doing here, you can follow us on Facebook
at Ill-Equipped History Podcast Group and Page,
Instagram
at Ill-Equipped History,
Gmail,
illequippedhistory@gmail.com,
TikTok
at Ill-Equipped History,
and our Patreon,
patreon.com/Ill-Equipped History, where for $5 a month you get access to our bonus episodes and stickers.
New sticker is out. Message us, email us if you want one.
Yeah.
Or just join the Patreon and we'll send you one.
Yeah.
We might even get a little froggy and send you one of each. We don't know.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Y'all deserve it.
You do, because you listen to our shenanigans every week.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, if you're going to shoot a president, don't.
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 And if you're going to conduct an investigation, do it the right way.
And you know what? I'm going to throw one out there. If you're going to cover up something, maybe do it better.
Yeah.
That was just...
sloppy.
Like, we saw through yours. That was sloppier than the Sloppy Joe.
Very eloquent.
Thank you. That's what I had for dinner the other night, so.
Still fresh on the noggin.
Yeah. Okay,